Nephilim evidence. Did the giants survive the flood? The Bible seems pretty clear, right? The Great Flood was a total reset button for the world, designed to wipe out all life that wasn't safe on Noah's Ark. That includes the giant Nephilim. Genesis chapter 7 says that every living thing that moved on the land perished. Case closed. But if that's true, why does the Bible itself seem to say the Nephilim were spotted again, generations after the flood? This one apparent contradiction has kept theologians and researchers busy for centuries. And it makes you ask a pretty disturbing question. What if the flood wasn't the end for the giants? Today we're digging into the evidence and exploring the unsettling theories that try to explain how these giants may have survived their own apocalypse. Section 1. The world before. Who were the Nephilim? So, to figure out how they might have survived, we first have to understand what they were. The story kicks off in Genesis chapter 6, which describes a world spiraling into chaos and wickedness. At the center of it all are two groups, the sons of God and the daughters of men. Genesis 6:4 gives us the key passage. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. Now, who exactly were these sons of God? That's a debate that has raged for centuries. One argument is that they were from the righteous line of Seth, who sinned by marrying into the ungodly line of Cain. But a much older, and frankly more provocative interpretation, which you'll find in ancient Jewish texts like the Book of Enoch, says they were fallen angels. According to this view, these angelic beings, called the Watchers, went rogue. They abandoned their heavenly duties, took human wives, and created hybrid children, the Nephilim. These weren't just big guys. They were beings of incredible power. And according to texts like Enoch, they brought immense violence and corruption to the world. Their very existence was seen as a contamination of God's creation, and this corruption is often interpreted as a major reason for the Great Flood. The flood was supposed to be a cleanse, a way to wipe this tainted bloodline off the face of the earth for good. Section 2. The Great Flood. A total reset? When you read the biblical account of the flood, it sounds completely final. Genesis 7 describes the event without mincing words. The waters covered the highest mountains, and the text is crystal clear about the result. Genesis 7:21-23 states, "And all flesh died that moved on the earth. Everything on the dry land in whose nostrils was the breath of life died. He blotted out every living thing that was on the face of the ground. Only Noah was left, and those who were with him in the ark." That seems to leave zero wiggle room, doesn't it? Every single land-dwelling creature that breathed air and wasn't on that ark was gone. The entire point was a hard reset, purging the world of the wickedness that the Nephilim were linked to. The mainstream theological view holds to this. The Nephilim were utterly and completely destroyed. So, how on earth do they show up again? Section 3. The disturbing reappearance. Fast forward a few centuries. The flood is a distant memory, and the Israelites are about to enter the promised land, Canaan. Moses sends 12 spies to scout the area, and they come back with a report that sends a wave of pure terror through the entire camp. In Numbers 13:33, the spies give their terrifying report. "And there we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, who come from the Nephilim. And we seemed to ourselves like grasshoppers, and so we seemed to them." This single verse is the smoking gun for the whole mystery. It's a direct mention of the Nephilim, long after they should have been ancient history. The spies don't just say they saw really tall people. They use the specific pre-flood term, Nephilim. It's important to note this is a report from terrified men, not necessarily a narrator-confirmed fact. In fact, the parenthetical note, "the sons of Anak, who come from the Nephilim," is absent from the Septuagint, an important ancient Greek translation of the Old Testament, leading many scholars to believe it was a later addition to the text. Still, the use of that name invokes a deep historical terror, suggesting they saw something more than just tough-looking warriors. This one verse creates the whole problem. If everyone was wiped out, Where did these Nephilim come from? Section 4. Unpacking the theories. This apparent contradiction has led to some fascinating theories, each trying to solve the puzzle of the post-flood giants. Theory 1. The terrified liars theory. This is the most straightforward explanation, and the one favored by many theologians. It suggests the spies were either flat-out lying, or at the very least, exaggerating because they were scared. In this view, the Canaanites were definitely tall and intimidating, and the spies, wanting no part of an invasion, used the legendary name Nephilim to make their point. It was basically a metaphor for, these guys are scarier than you can possibly imagine. The problem with this theory is that the text presents their claim without immediate correction, and that debatable parenthetical note suggests that later scribes or readers also saw a real connection. Theory 2. The genetic bottleneck theory. This next theory is more modern and speculative, reading between the lines of the text. It argues the Nephilim themselves drowned, but their DNA didn't. The Bible says Noah was perfect in his generations, implying his lineage was pure. But the text says nothing about the genetic background of his 3 daughters-in-law, the wives of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. This theory proposes that one or more of these women might have carried a recessive Nephilim gene. After the flood, as humanity spread out, this dormant genetic code could have reappeared generations later, especially in the line of Ham, whose descendants, including the Canaanites, settled the land. This is a purely speculative idea, with no direct biblical support, but it's an attempt to explain how giants like Goliath could exist after the flood without any original giants surviving. Theory 3. The second fall theory. This is maybe the most unsettling theory of all. It goes back to that strange phrase in Genesis 6:4. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward. Some argue this isn't just a turn of phrase. It's a literal statement that the unholy union between angels and humans wasn't a one-time event. This theory, while a minority view in academic circles, posits that after the flood, a second incursion happened. A new group of fallen angels repeated the sins of the first, creating a new generation of Nephilim. This would explain the reappearance of giants without contradicting the flood's destruction of the originals. It suggests the flood solved a problem that, horrifically, just happened again. Theory 4. The demonic spirits theory. This theory shifts from the physical to the spiritual and leans heavily on non-biblical texts like the Book of Enoch. According to these ancient writings, when the Nephilim died in the flood, their physical bodies were gone, but their spirits, being an unnatural hybrid of heavenly and earthly, couldn't move on. These disembodied spirits were cursed to roam the earth as demons or unclean spirits. It should be stressed this is not a canonical biblical teaching. In this view, the survival wasn't physical but spiritual. Their evil influence continued to plague humanity, providing an origin story for the demonic forces mentioned later in the Bible. It's a different kind of survival, one the floodwaters could never wash away. So before we get to the physical evidence, or lack thereof, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let me know which of these theories you think is most plausible. Was it just a scary story, a hidden gene, a second angelic rebellion, or a spiritual haunting? And hey, if you're enjoying this deep dive, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Section 5. The archaeological evidence. Okay, so if giants were stomping around Canaan after the flood, you'd expect to find something, right? Where are the bones? For over a century, we've seen sensational headlines about the discovery of giant skeletons in burial mounds or ancient caves. Photos of massive human skulls and leg bones are all over the internet. This, however, is where the exciting mystery slams headfirst into a brick wall of science. To date, every single one of these claims has been debunked. The supposed discoveries have all turned out to be one of two things: deliberate hoaxes, like the famous Cardiff giant, or simple misidentifications of bones from large animals like mammoths and mastodons. The Smithsonian Institution is often at the center of conspiracy theories about a massive cover-up, but there has never been any proof to back up these claims. And while some people point to massive structures like Stonehenge and say only giants could have built these, modern archaeology has demonstrated how ancient humans, with sheer ingenuity and clever engineering, pulled off these incredible feats. As of today, there is zero credible, verified archaeological evidence for a race of giants. So, after all this, did the Nephilim actually survive the Great Flood? The Bible hands us a fascinating puzzle. It declares a total wipeout, then follows up with reports of their return. We're left with a handful of powerful theories. Were the post-flood giants just a legend? A boogeyman cooked up by terrified spies? Did their genetic code sneak aboard the Ark, hidden in plain sight? Or, in the most chilling scenario, did history repeat itself with a second angelic fall? The physical evidence just isn't there. The ground is silent, offering only hoaxes and misinterpretations. The Bible gives us tantalizing clues, but no simple solution. It's a mystery that has survived for millennia, preserved in ancient texts. And perhaps the real question isn't whether their physical bodies survived the flood, but whether their legacy, their influence of chaos and corruption, ever truly left our world.